Today our topic is, what is the meaning of life? Different philosophical perspectives. The meaning of life is a question that has puzzled humans for thousands of years. It is a question that every person at some point asks themselves. Why are we here? What is our purpose? Different philosophers, cultures, and thinkers have tried to answer this question in their own ways. Some say life has no inherent meaning, and it is up to us to create our own. Others believe life's meaning is tied to something greater, like God, nature, or the universe. Let's explore some of these ideas and see how they can help us understand our own lives better. One of the oldest and most well-known philosophies about the meaning of life comes from ancient Greece. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, believed that life's meaning is found in living virtuously and in harmony with nature. They taught that we cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. According to Stoicism, the purpose of life is to develop wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. These virtues help us face challenges with calmness and strength. The Stoics believe that by focusing on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, we can find peace and meaning, even in difficult times. This philosophy is still relevant today because it reminds us that we have the power to choose how we live, no matter what happens around us. Another perspective comes from Existentialism, a philosophy that became popular in the 19th and 20th centuries. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus argued that life has no inherent meaning. They believe that the universe is indifferent to us, and there is no grand plan or purpose. This might sound depressing, but existentialists see it as an opportunity. If life has no predetermined meaning, we are free to create our own. Sartre said, "Existence precedes essence," which means we exist first, and then we define ourselves through our choices and action. This philosophy encourages us to take responsibility for our lives and to find meaning in our relationships, passions, and goals. For existentialists, the meaning of life is not something we find, it is something we create. In contrast to existentialism, many religious traditions offer a different view of life's meaning. For example, in Christianity, the purpose of life is often seen as loving God and others, following divine teachings, and preparing for an afterlife. The Bible says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." These teachings suggest that life's meaning is connected to spiritual growth, service, and love. Similarly, in Islam, the meaning of life is to worship Allah and live according to His will with the hope of attaining paradise. Hinduism and Buddhism, on the other hand, focus on concepts like karma, dharma, and moksha. In Hinduism, life's purpose is to fulfill one's duty, dharma, and achieve liberation, moksha, from the cycle of birth and death. Buddhism teaches that the meaning of life is to overcome suffering by following the Eightfold Path and attaining enlightenment. These religious perspectives remind us that life's meaning may be tied to something beyond ourselves, whether it is God, a higher power, or spiritual awakening. Some modern thinkers take a more scientific approach to the meaning of life. For example, evolutionary biologists might argue that life's purpose is simply to survive and reproduce. From this perspective, humans, like all living things, are driven by the need to pass on their genes to the next generation. While this view might seem cold or impersonal, it can also inspire us to think about how we contribute to the larger web of life. It reminds us that we are part of a long chain of existence, stretching back millions of years, and our actions can have an impact on future generations. This perspective doesn't necessarily give us a specific purpose, but it can help us feel connected to something bigger than ourselves. Another interesting perspective comes from Utilitarianism, a philosophy that focuses on maximizing happiness and reducing suffering. Thinkers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill believe that the meaning of life is to create the greatest good for the greatest number of people. This philosophy encourages us to think about how our actions affect others, and to strive for a world where everyone can live a happy and fulfilling life. Utilitarianism reminds us that life's meaning might be found in helping others and making the world a better place. It challenges us to look beyond our own needs and consider the well-being of the entire community. Of course, not everyone agrees on what the meaning of life is, and that's okay. Some people believe that life's meaning is deeply personal and cannot be defined by any philosophy or religion. They might find meaning in their relationships, their work, their hobbies, or their experiences. For example, a parent might find meaning in raising their children, while an artist might find meaning in creating something beautiful. A teacher might find meaning in helping students learn, while a scientist might find meaning in discovering new truths about the world. These personal meanings are just as valid as any grand philosophical or religious idea. They remind us that life's meaning can be found in the small, everyday moments as well as the big, life-changing ones. So, what can we learn from all these different perspectives? First, we learn that there is no single answer to the question of life's meaning. Each person must find their own answer based on their beliefs, values, and experiences. Second, we learn that life's meaning is not something we find outside of ourselves. It is something we create through our choices, actions, and relationships. Whether we follow a religious path, a philosophical idea, or a personal passion, the meaning of life is ultimately up to us. Third, we learn that life's meaning is not fixed. It can change over time as we grow and evolve. What gives our life meaning today might be different from what gives it meaning tomorrow, and that's okay. Finally, it's important to remember that the search for meaning is not just an intellectual exercise, it is a deeply human experience. It is something that connects us all, no matter where we come from or what we believe. We are all trying to make sense of our lives and find our place in the world. This search can be challenging, but it can also be incredibly rewarding. It can push us to grow, to learn, and to become the best versions of ourselves. It can inspire us to live with purpose, passion, and courage. In the end, the meaning of life might not be a single definitive answer. It might be a journey, a process of exploration and discovery. It might be about asking questions, seeking answers, and finding joy in the search itself. As the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." In other words, when we have a sense of purpose, we can face almost any challenge. So, whatever your why is, whether it is love, faith, creativity, service, or something else entirely, hold on to it. Let it guide you, inspire you, and give you strength. Because in the end, the meaning of life is not just about finding answers. It is about living a life that feels meaningful to you.